You know what reminded me a lot of Moose the other day?
Did you have some tortellini?
So no. It was more the aftermath of say pasta, for example. I was running to the bathroom, and I was in such a hurry because I had to go, and I forgot to sit down.
You
So
forgot to what?
I forgot to pull the seat down into my toilet. So like
Oh my god,
I'm
Tong!
squatting down, and then I realized that half squat. So then I have to like myself on the toilet and push myself up so I could pull the toilet bowl down before I'm like, I get my hands dirty, And I was thinking to myself, what an apt metaphor for Mussolini and fascism,
Our host, lady and
Wow.
gentlemen.
Wow.
Now, you might be wondering, where does this whole catching yourself before you fall into the toilet thing have to play in with Mussolini?
Yes,
Well-
when does he fall into a toilet? Do tell.
Well, I guess we're going to be going over that this episode with our third episode about Mussolini. So once again, hello, I'm Tong. I'm your host. And I'm joined today by a few of the same guests as before. I'm here with Kevin.
Hi.
I'm also here with Will.
This
Do
is
we
another
have to do
fucking
this
plot
every
story.
time? Like, seriously.
Just a quick thing,
No, it's not
No,
quick. It's
no,
awkward and
this
slow.
this isn't the question that we need to focus on. It's the fact that Tong has yet another bathroom story.
It is another
What is-
story.
What is with you in bathrooms? Do we
Look,
need to
people
like,
spend a lot of their
Okay,
lives in the bathroom.
okay.
He was
I
never
will-
potty trained at a young age, and he's just kind of
He's pretty
I will
figuring
let
it
you
out as he
know-
goes now.
Well,
As
if
a
you think
person,
about it, the more I've potty... Yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
as a person who lives with this child monster, he spent 45 minutes in the bathroom either showering or shitting today, and I'm not sure which one happened first, but he took a whole entire 45 minutes in the whole bathroom, and he only got out because we had to go to the library at 4:15. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very much
No
aware
kidding.
of the situation at hand. Ashley.
why are
I-
you my dad?
like I don't.
Wait, why am I your dad,
Yeah,
or why is Ashley?
that's what my dad does. He
I
camps in the
don't
bathroom
know
for
what
years.
he
Look,
emerged
it's a little
out of the
privacy,
bathroom.
He
I
goes
swear
to
the
the
only
bathroom.
reason
Right.
why
It's like
why
he's going
Tom
to get
leaves
some
the
milk.
bathroom after he showers is because he needs to eat. Like that's the only
That's
reason
not
why he has
true.
to leave. Are you sure? Because you
Yeah,
don't eat
absolutely.
breakfast, and then you
Well, yeah,
come out
because
at
it
like
goes
3
straight to
o'clock
exercise.
to go eat. Tom, you
That's
have
This
a
is-
problem.
With that, I
I
space out my meals.
Tom spends more time in the shower than I do, and I have 7 inches more of hair.
Which you apparently don't wash except like every third day.
No, I wash it every other day. And besides, my hair routine is way crazier than yours.
Sure, I'll take your word for it.
But yeah, I mean, Tong, what the fuck are you doing with your hair?
We need
Tong
a
is-
photo of his like just his hair, not his face, just like cut off at the forehead. We need to put
Good
that in the-
God. I use a lot of product on my hair, both during the shower, after the shower, and before shower.
Yeah, all 1 inch of it.
All right,
yes,
let's
that's
get
right.
back to the main topic. Probably.
Intros. We're not even done with intros.
Anyway, we're doing Mussolini part 3.
Wait, we
You
haven't
don't-
introduced Luke yet, have we?
Who
We have-
cares?
Or
Luke?
me.
Oh, okay.
Has he been
Luke.
here before? He's been, everyone's
Yeah.
been here before.
We've all
We don't
been
have
here
all
before,
been
but
here.
we're not done yet.
We don't have anyone
Wait, where's
new.
Luke?
If you don't know any of us, either you really needed to pay attention to part 1 or 2, or you haven't
Or
watched
you're-
part 1 or 2, in which case, what are you doing
Please go
here?
back
Go watch part
and
1
watch
and 2.
part 1 too. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like no offense against you guys, but y'all's names aren't super memorable, So it's not exactly a
You're the one who has by far gotten his name mixed up by other people the most.
Yeah,
but that's
Tony.
because it's memorable.
Okay. No,
Yes.
Tom. My friend still insists to call you Tom,
With an
even
M.
though she's Chinese. Yeah, with an M, even though she's Chinese.
Okay, well,
That's
there
because
you
it's
go.
fun. Not just because it's funny though.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's great.
That shit is
See?
hilarious.
but what am I going to do
I
with
mean-
a Kevin or a Will? Or a Luke for that? I mean, I could do more with a Luke.
That's
honestly.
right,
I don't know
you
that
can.
many.
What do you mean?
Lukes.
What could you do? With
I know
it?
like 4 Lukes. I'm sorry.
It's a
What's your name?
name. What do you do with a name? You use it.
Well, yeah, but it's not exactly a memorable name. Anyways, that's a whole other can of worms that we could talk about.
Unlike the rest of you, I'm actually in the Bible.
Yeah, that's totally the.
Holy
I don't know.
shit.
I'm pretty sure there were a few Kevins in the Bible. You gotta look deep into it. I think the waiter at the Last Supper was named Kevin.
At the very least, I was like a pretty bomb-ass doctor, I'm pretty sure.
I think that was. Didn't you write a whole book within the Bible?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
There
Book
you
of
go.
Kevin.
Dang.
The Book of Kevin, written by Luke.
The third book of the Gospels. Yes.
Yeah.
I know my Bible.
But if you want to go back to some history making, we got to go back to our friend Mussolini here. So, kind of a quick recap before we've seen Mussolini grab power in Italy by kind of using his ability to just beat up opposition and sell this idea about making Italy great again.
And by being literally handed the position of prime minister.
No,
Yep.
quite literally. He organized a march, which he was so uncertain about that he ran all the way to the Swiss border just so he could duck out if all things go bad. And then the king instead decides to make this loser of a man prime minister. And then he's also able to get inroads with the Pope, and then everyone loves fascist Italy all of a sudden. And if you don't love it, you weren't really allowed to speak up because he's got his black shirt still running amok.
Black shirts.
Which again,
Yeah.
not a uniform. It's just a shirt. That's
That
black.
everyone happens to own it, so they just decided to be.
Well,
black
you
shirts.
said that the reason they use black shirts is because, budget reasons. They didn't have money to
Right, yeah.
actually have a
fairly
uniform, so
commonplace,
everyone
yeah.
just happened to have a black shirt. So it's not even the same kind of black shirt. It's just whatever black top
And
people
there's like
happen
different
to have.
shades of black too. You got to understand
Oh
that.
my god! Imagine
Yeah.
some guy with like the greenish black color that's faded so many times because they've washed it.
It's
so
like
many
the guy
times.
who's like, it's basically just a white shirt, but it's got like a black dash on it. It's like, I mean, sure, that's good
yes,
enough
that's
for a
what I-
uniform, right?
I remember
It's
when
like,
I
no,
wore
you look like a white
recently.
shirt. There are enemies, you know?
Some guy just like took his white shirt and shoved it into a coal pile and just run it.
It's just a
rolled
dusty
it around.
shirt. That's all
It's
it is.
just a dusty shirt.
I remember for school spirit days where I'd put a red post-it note or whatever on my shirt so that I could make sure that I was showing the spirit.
Amazing.
Oh my god!
But,
and then the worst part is you're wearing an actual blue shirt underneath, and you just have that one red square, and you're like, "Yeah, school pride. What's up?"
Yeah.
There you go. But at that point, like a lot of the stuff that's been happening, it very much feels like it's just Mussolini kind of like by happenstance being at the right place at the right time with the right amount of people waving newspapers at others. And like for such a big dictator who played such a huge role in history, it's kind of easy to mistake him for a clownish figure riding a unicycle, thwacking kids with newspaper rolls.
I mean, realistically, that's what Hitler
But-
was too, right?
Well, I mean, to a degree, you could always look at it like that. But to their credits, to Mussolini's credit in this case, there is a level of street smarts, and there's a level of intellect behind him in his operations. And while getting him into power, a lot of that was just purely incidental, and a lot of things just falling into. When it came to his plan to like turn Italy into an expandatory powerhouse, he definitely did have things planned out somewhat. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, because he's gone over all this rhetoric about making Italy the next Roman Empire. And right now, his little country is still very much confined to the Italian peninsula itself. It hasn't really spread out too much yet. And now he's going to finally put his money where his mouth is. So to break this all down, it's going to be in the form of three different situations. We're going to be talking about the case of Albania, a little country in the Balkans who was relatively new and had its own fascist problems. We're going to be talking about Ethiopia, and we're also going to be talking about Mussolini's relationships with Hitler and how that plays out up to World War II.
I've heard of that, dude.
Yeah, it's a little war. You might have heard about it. Hitler might have some name behind that.
What
as
happened
well.
to World War One?
What happened to World War One?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the war that ended all wars, so no one talks
Oh,
about it.
you're right.
Yeah, it ended, and then we did War 2.0. So Albania, I don't know if any of you guys have really heard about the country of Albania before.
I know Boston has a fairly high Albanian population because in the hospitals, they have like those sheets that have the quick translations for people to have in the waiting room, and one of them
In
is
Albania
like
is one of the languages.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know about that actually. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
more you know.
is it's a country that's kind of tucked in, like, think like north of Greece, in the Balkans, and it's a very young country. It came about like basically right before World War II, World War One rather, so in 1912. And originally, this was going to be a constitutional monarchy, kind of like what Italy was, And they, because as was in vogue during that time period, if you're starting a new country and you're going to need a monarch to take over, you don't want to choose someone who's actually from your country. No, that's
Naturally.
That's how you get factionalism. That's how people choose different sides. The best way to find a truly neutral and good king to rule this young fledgling country is to go to somewhere in Germany and pick out a prince and say, you're going to be the new king of this place that you probably have never heard about. So they went ahead, they did that. They chose this guy by the name of Prince William of Wied, or Wied, I think. I don't permanently just.
Well, it worked for the Holy Roman Emperor, right?
It worked for that, yeah. But at least those were people who lived in the Holy Roman Empire. We're talking about people that had no relations to Albania whatsoever. Picked this guy, planted him into Albania, and all of a sudden he's like, this seems like a good gig. I'm a king now, whereas before I was like a prince who probably would never have power. And then they're like, yeah, about that. You see, Albania's kind of got a religious divide situation. It's got a large Muslim population as well as a large Christian population. And those religious lines were always kind of an issue in the area. It was under different controls by different empires, and they were always trying to like play different groups in a way to just keep things balanced. And all that balance went out of the window the moment World War I started, because everyone's like, we're just going to go ahead and pick sides based on our various affiliations. And, kudos to Prince William. He realized when he wasn't any good, so he just went ahead and left town. So Albania was a kingdom.
Yeah,
no, he just straight up left the country. And
he read the situation and he did as
he was like,
I'm
just gonna go home.
Honestly, smart move.
Are we sure this isn't a Holy Roman Emperor?
Oh, I mean, he was from Germany, so his family very well might have had that same tie. So those answers.
This sounds exactly like the playbook of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Just have a king that's just kind of there.
But basically, once he ducks out, Albania kind of falls into this chaotic mess. And for a while, they become like briefly a republic. And then the prime minister, by the name of Ahmed Bey Zogu, becomes like the one in charge.
Zogu.
The 1920s. I know, kind of a badass name, right? Zogu. Sounds like a movie.
Sounds like an anime character.
Sounds like Zod.
I could totally see him as an anime character.
Like Dragon Ball Z style. Like
yeah.
powerhouse.
If he was a Dragon Ball character, he'd be named after a vegetable.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Do you not see the naming scheme of like
not just vegetables, because we have Frieza too, which is a freezer.
Yes, but okay, all the names are food. Okay, that's
the Saiyan names are food. Kakarot, Vegeta, Nappa's a cabbage. Piccolo. Well, Piccolo is also an instrument.
Yeah, but he's named after Pickle. He looks like
he's also a green guy named. He's also a green guy named after Pickle. Yes.
Well, throwing Zogu in the list of vegetables on your shopping list. He goes in, tries to have his bit, and then he gets thrown out by a bunch of revolutionaries. So he's got like this coup, topples him for a few years, and then he comes back, takes over again, but now he's just very paranoid about power. Because, getting overthrown tends to do that to a person.
You get cooed, just go back.
Just never feel safe ever again.
So, like, if you get taken out of power, you realize things weren't working so hot, you kind of get reflective. You think about how you should run things again, how you should make things better. Maybe you should listen to the concerns of your people a bit more and concern the fact that, no, why do that? No, just do fascism. That's the simple way. People don't like you, be a fascist dictator. So he goes ahead and he imports over this whole new Vogue thing going right across the pond in Italy, this thing called fascism. And he's like, yeah, I kind of like this idea about just kind of being a strong dictator. And then he was like, wait a minute, you know what's better than being a strong dictator? Be a strong dictator for life, and then having your kids also be a strong dictator.
So
So North Korea.
There you go. Be a king, be North Korea. So he goes ahead. He gets rid of the whole being prime minister, being president, having a republic thing, tosses that out, and is like, I am now King Zog the First of Albania.
Jesus Christ.
What happened to
so
the U?
powerful.
Okay, that's not a Dragon Ball character. That's a Power Rangers character.
Yeah, very much a Power Rangers character.
Actually, yeah, I guess a Zog without you. Well, a Zogu without you is a Zog.
What
Yeah.
was the name of
There's a
that
joke
Toy
in there
Story?
somewhere.
He doesn't care about you. He just cares about Zog. So
What was the name of that Toy Story villain? I feel like it's very similar.
Zurg, Emperor Zurg, I think
Ah.
like in Toy Story 2.
Whichever
I thought that was
one-
from. I thought that was a thing from StarCraft.
Zurging?
The Zurg
I-
or the StarCraft action, yes.
Either way, he's very much associated with sci-fi at this point in fantasy. And he's like, I'm gonna take this on, and he's got his own little fantasy in his head, about him turning Albania rather into like a powerhouse in the Balkans. A little problem here is that, well, number one,
It's the Balkans.
he's king. Also, it's the Balkans, so there's a lot of different power plays going on at that point. But Albania especially is like a tiny little new fledgling country without a lot of resources in it. So you can't really get rich quick if you don't have the ways to get rich, So in order to fund his little country, his ideas about fascism, and also he's designed all these amazing uniforms himself that he wants everyone to wear, but he has a way to pay for it. He goes
they
over
black
and
shirts?
reaches over to Mussolini, who is able to turn around Italy's economy somehow. And he's like, hey, could you help me out a bit with this?
Didn't that have absolutely nothing to do with him though? Like he didn't actually do anything.
I mean,
That's right, because
that's how most
Mussolini
of
was-
economic
yeah.
recoveries go.
Like Mussolini, I guess the most you could say is that he made it, like he shut down all the striking workers. So that allowed business to run smooth again. But aside from that, he didn't really do too much. It was just like a general like economic revival in the area that happened to bring Italy, as well as a bunch of other countries, up from its previous depression. So he goes over to Italy and reaches out to his fellow fascists. He's like, hey, Mussolini, I need a loan.
Hey, Mussolini, pasta.
And Mussolini's
I know
like,
that's
yeah,
such a racist joke.
Mussolini,
man.
my cousin.
And he's like, hey, look, this King Zog, was it? Yeah, I know. You just became king a few months ago. Great. I'd be happy to give you a little loan, from Italy, courtesy of the family here. Welcome to the family of fascists. We'll help, make sure you have a strong army. And also, yeah. And he's like, I think the best way for this to happen is if, like, I send over some military advisors, I send over some troops, I send over basically a good portion of our factories to be set up in your area too, so we can make some money out of this as well. And at this point, King Zog is like, wait, no, I just wanted a loan. It's like, yeah, no, this is the loan. We're loaning you all these resources that we expect back in interest later on. And Zog's like, slowly seeing his country get overrun by Italians at this point. And he's like, can we renegotiate this deal, please? And he's like, I have altered the deal. Right? I don't go any further. And he whips out his baseball bat. It's like, play nice or else I'll break your kneecaps here. So
oh my god.
He's
Poor King
upgraded
Zog.
from rolled up newspapers to baseball bats now.
yeah, it's the fascist play style. You upgrade yourself.
They
And,
finally researched bats.
Yeah, pretty much. And at this point, King Zog is like, all right, I guess I'll do this. I'll just.
I mean, he doesn't have much of a choice.
Yeah, but I mean, he does have a choice, you see, because he's king. He's king of Albania. He's so king-like, he gets to go over and try to find himself a royal match. That's where he gets control in his life. So he goes around and he's like basically losing control of his own country, but he's like strutting about Europe trying to find himself a wife that's
Oh
like
my god.
also like established royalty. Except no one else cares for this King Zog guy wandering around from the little known country of Albania. There's like this there's this one story that my professor went over where he's like at this convention or at this like big meeting place, and he steps into the elevator, and who's in the elevator but the last ruling Habsburg emperor of the old, now defunct Austrian Empire. So there's this established Habsburg aristocrat in the same elevator as King Zog. And during the entire ride, they don't say a single word to each other. Just imagine awkward elevator music playing the entire time. They and their huge entourage are just packed into this tiny elevator. And after they get to the floor, they step out, and King Zog's advisor's like, yo, you know who that guy was? That was the former emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Why didn't you go talk to him? And he's like, well, he was emperor. He's not emperor anymore.
Oh my god.
You know, get on my level, you know? Which, once again, you got to keep in mind, literally fledgling guy who just declared himself king. So...
Yeah, I mean, like, way to talk, man.
I know, right? I mean, obviously, he only did that after the guy left because he doesn't have the guts to say it to the guy's face. But
Just probably for the best.
Guy, yeah. I mean, the only reason why Mussolini even really tolerated him is because he's also technically a fascist and he's also anti-communist. So, hooray, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah. And in 1927, at this point, Albania is basically just an Italian protectorate. Everything is effectively under Italian control in Albania. So, you know, Mussolini starts patting himself on the back, you know, like, look at that. I'm able to expand. I'm able to spread fascism to other countries and then take over those countries when they don't do things as well as I do here. Like, I'm a genius, you know?
I did a good job.
Yeah, like, I actually did something. I made Italy great again. Now, you know where Italy was not great? Africa. We should go to Africa and...
Probably because it wasn't Italy.
Oh, well, Italy wasn't great in Italy for a while, too. But he thinks he's fixed that, you know? So he's going beyond. He's going across the Mediterranean. And his next destination that he hops to is this country called Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia is kind of unique because it's in this situation where by the 1930s, it's never been called a European country before. It's also a Christian kingdom, too. So a lot of European countries also, when they were with their whole like, we are here to Christianize you people, the Ethiopians were like, yeah, hey, great. We have like the oldest cathedral in Christendom right in our backyard. So like, we know all about Jesus Christ and his word and how we're going to be saved.
How did Christianity spread all the way there? Was that not a common thing for it to get that far?
Well, the thing is, it's more like a combination of things. So Christianity spread into Africa fairly early on. I mean, just given its like geographic location to Jerusalem, you know, it's understandable why it would spread in that direction.
That
to the point
sense.
Where Egypt had a group of what are known as Coptic Christians. They're Coptic in the sense that the Greek term for Egyptians called Aegyptos just gets shortened down to Copt. But basically, they're some of the oldest Christians. Like they go back the longest, and they have like one of the earliest forms of Christianity. And that stuff spread down to Ethiopia, which also claims to have ties to like King David, I think, or no, Solomon. So like they're like, yeah, you know, we're cool with Judaism. We get that. Christianity's kind of like that. Cool. We'll take that. We'll modify it. And then they took that and they kept that going for a long time. And never fell under any sort of like Muslim conquest either. So that's why they were such a long-lasting Christian kingdom in that area. Whereas like Egypt and the others were conquered by Muslims, and therefore they converted mostly to
So it is Christian, but it probably doesn't fall under Orthodox or Catholic or anything.
Yeah, they have their own different twist on Christianity.
Their own little flavor.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, they're still Christian. So like
road.
for a lot of these like European countries, when we colonize them is like we lose a lot of our moral high ground when we try to do that. Not that that's prevented them from doing that in the past, but for a lot of them anyways, it was seen as like a secondary thing to do. Like Ethiopia, you do your own thing. They've had their dynasty of kings dating back hundreds of years. They could run things just fine. And except for Italy, because Italy was like, we kind of missed out on the whole scramble for Africa. We tried taking over a few areas here, but I think we should try our luck with Ethiopia next. That's a challenge. We could show the world what we're made of if we could take on Ethiopia. And Ethiopia.
I mean, wait, but the reason people didn't take on Ethiopia before wasn't because they were like militarily impressive or anything. It's just because they didn't want to do the whole like Christians against Christians thing, right?
That was one of the big reasons, yeah. And you got to keep in mind, Ethiopia, even by like the late 1800s, was still a feudal society, very divided with like local lords. And the army was basically just whatever these lords would give to the emperor to help fight these battles. So like very divided, and technically speaking, on the surface, an easy target. So Italy was just trying to prove its weight by just expanding its very, very small overseas empire at that point.
You sound like you're setting it up so Ethiopia is not an easy target.
Well, I mean,
it's Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also
Italy
true.
and the whole overseas colonizing thing was not the best. So they tried it, and then they got fully rebuffed. So Ethiopia was like a mark of Italian shame, pretty much, because they couldn't beat a bunch of Africans who've been running a feudal system for hundreds of years. And so Mussolini is like, that was the weak Italy of the past. That's not the true fascist.
Is this the international version of Mussolini beating kids?
Pretty much. In his mind, he was like, this is a kid I could beat with my newspaper, So, and also the way that he would like justify it is like, we Italians are here to spread true fascist civilization over to Italy, so like invading this place is actually doing them a good thing, and also
that's what they all say.
They always say that. And also like we need more places for Italians to live because America's not taking in that many Italian immigrants anymore. Mamma mia, where are we going to send them next? Albania? Not yet. They're still technically independent. But we could try it with Africa. We'll send them there. We'll help colonize some more lands. And also the interesting thing too is that just a few years earlier, Japan had invaded China. Now, both Japan and China were part of the League of Nations, which was all about like no wars of aggression. You're not allowed to
invade each other.
The League of Nations is going to come in and put out our chest and say you can't do that, and write you a strongly worded letter, backed with military threat. Yes, backed with military threat, indeed. But Japan did it, and they did a whole report. And then they like presented this book report about why Japan shouldn't invade China to the League of Nations. And they're like, and in conclusion, Japan, you've been very naughty. And Japan's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. So they just quit the League of Nations and kept on invading China. And there were no consequences. So Mussolini is like just looking at that from afar. And he's like, so you're saying I can't invade countries and nothing's going to happen about that. Okay. All right, then I will go beat up this kid with my newspaper roll. Nothing's going to happen. There's no consequences. So our good, brave Duce Mussolini in 1934 has his first clash with the Ethiopian forces. Now, the ruler of Ethiopia, Emperor Haile Selassie, still dealing with like the whole decentralized thing, but at least he jumped on the bandwagon with the whole League of Nations. So he goes over to the League of Nations and he's like, hey, not sure if you're aware about this, but an Italian army just freaking invaded my country. Weren't you guys supposed to do something about this? So,
nah.
And what did the League of Nations do then?
Well, the first thing they had to do is to make sure that an army had invaded Ethiopia.
Make sure they're not just perusing.
What does that mean?
They had to send people over into Ethiopia to make sure that this wasn't just, and this happens all the time apparently, a border skirmish. This was actually a full-on invasion. Like
a border skirmish.
The border,
wait,
that's
but like
fine.
how?
Italy, Ethiopia.
But how far is Italy from Ethiopia? Like, what kind of border skirmish would that be?
That's
over the
it wasn't
sea
like
skirmish.
They're like, it wasn't like over the Mediterranean kind of deal necessarily. They did have holdings in Libya, for example, in North Africa, so they could hypothetically. It's It's a very, very difficult thing to do, but you could argue that there's a border skirmish going on between the colonial holdings of Italy and Africa and Ethiopia.
Oh my
So
god.
they had to send people into Ethiopia to be like, yes, it does appear that the Italians are invading Ethiopia. Meanwhile, the Italians are continuing their invasion of Ethiopia without any stops at this point.
We need to send this back home to our experts to figure out if this is actually an invasion.
Yes, we have to have our analysts confirm that this invasion is in fact an invasion. And then we have to consult our protocol about invasion.
Oh my god.
So the entire thing. And the League of Nations, which by this point was pretty much controlled by France and Great Britain. The US, which had championed the League of Nations, actually voted to not enter the League of Nations because they were afraid of international oversight over the United States' actions. So the US is not a player really in terms of determining what is good or bad for countries by the League of Nations. It's up to these old colonial powers, France and Great Britain, two countries, by the way, which had spent a lot of time carving up Africa and just invading native African kingdoms. So like you could see that reporting this abuse to these guys probably isn't going to be the best people to get a reasonable solution.
I'm reminded of is it not the EU, the UN nowadays has like that human rights board or something that's composed of the worst offenders of human rights in the world right now.
I believe it's Iran and Russia are both on that.
Yep.
No, it's not Iran. Sorry, Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, yeah. So as you can imagine, it's well, let's just say we didn't necessarily learn all the lessons that we could from history on this matter. But they report this to France and Great Britain. They report this to France and Great Britain and the rest of the League of Nations countries that bothered to show up. And the emperor's like, are you going to do something about this? And Great Britain and France are like, well, this technically does mean we have to do something. So
we're going to send Italy a strongly worded letter.
No, we're going to do more than that. We're not that useless. Yes, we're going to implement economic sanctions on Italy. That's right. Now, in all fairness, economic sanctions can be devastating if you do it.
Those are pretty powerful. That's like the whole backbone of the Iran nuclear deal, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and like if you are able to target all the critical stuff, you could really cripple a country. Here's the thing.
Assuming they try.
Yes, that's the big part. And these countries do not really try. See, the biggest thing that could power a war machine like Italy, which is flying planes and carpet bombing areas in Ethiopia, is oil. Because Italy doesn't have a lot of oil reserves. So if you sanction oil to Italy, you could directly attack their war machine.
I guess olive oil doesn't count.
No, unfortunately not. They were too busy drinking all that stuff.
They didn't figure out diesel quite yet.
They were downing olive oil like wine.
Yeah,
I mean,
diesel
comes from the same place as gasoline.
That's true. I think he's talking about biodiesel.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, I took chemistry.
I think you're talking about ethanol.
Ethanol. That's from corn.
The point is that
Yeah,
it did take a while for it to start working.
They weren't really fueling their jets. They weren't fueling their planes, rather, with olive oil at this point. Not yet. They weren't that eco-friendly just yet.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. First carpet bomb in an African kingdom, and then go to green tech. As one does.
Priorities.
But so they don't sanction oil, and that means that Mussolini is like, haha, lols, I'm gonna keep this fight going. And then all the other stuff that they sanction, they don't really sanction either. It goes back to what you're saying, Kevin, about how they have to actually bother to try. The thing is, both France and Great Britain, which were, they were pretty ravaged by World War I, they're still trying to build up their military again. And as a result, they were afraid of, potentially risking putting some teeth behind their claims that they're going to sanction this. And if there is ever going to be a battle to break out, they don't want to lose up their entire rebuilt military force just to stop a European country from colonizing Africa, which they've been doing for a better part of their existence.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it does sound very stupid.
Yeah, so they're like, you know what? That's probably fine. We're gonna did it. We'll slap these sanctions in there. We'll say they're technically implemented so that we can get over all the stuff about respecting country sovereignty that everyone cares about all of a sudden. and that'll be our effort. That'll be our effort for this thing. And also another big thing too is that they didn't want to piss off Mussolini too much because they felt like Mussolini is the kind of guy that could keep out crazy people like communists and Hitler. If we keep Mussolini like on our good side, we'll like do the technical stuff of respecting Ethiopia's sovereignty, but like if we just do the bare minimum, Mussolini might still be happy to work with us, and that means that he'll keep out the other crazies from destroying.
Really trying to double dip here on the diplomacy.
Pretty much, yeah. France and Great Britain, they love doing that whole balance of power shtick. Especially when it means that they don't lose anything and it's just some poor African country that's losing it all. So as a result, Emperor Selassie is like going all around Europe and America, desperately pleading for people to help out. And nothing's really happening. And meanwhile, Mussolini is like, these sanctions do jack shit. And also they're like reaching out to me. They're sending me these lovely Christmas cards all the time. Like, I don't think they really mean anything,
Oh, man, the system is broken and I love it.
Yeah, something's telling me that they don't care when Europeans attack non-Europeans, just a guess out here. And
King Zog driving down through downtown Washington, begging through text for the location of Mussolini's apartment.
No, King is too busy trying to find a wife at this point, up in Albania. Yeah, he's got his own problems. But meanwhile, in 1936, Mussolini's pretty much wrapped up the entire conquest of Ethiopia. And Selassie now goes off in exile into London. And meanwhile, Great Britain and France are like, oh no, who would have thought that this would have happened?
Not Ethiopia.
Well, guys, we tried. So 2 months after Mussolini's completely annexed Ethiopia into the Italian Empire, they pulled off these devastating sanctions. And they're like, well, guys, we did our best. So
you guys can have your playing cards back.
You guys can, like, even though you've been basically having all this stuff in the first place, here you go. Just take it. And please help keep back Hitler for us. Thank you very much. So at this point, League of Nations 0, dictatorships conquering other places 2. Japan did it. Now Italy's done it. So Mussolini's like feeling pretty proud of himself. He's read the room. He's realized no one cares if I'm able to A, bully neighboring small fascist countries into basically becoming my country, and B, invading non-Europeans, because the people that run the entirety of the League of Nations are old colonial European countries. So I think I got it. I think I got this figured out. And this is where it takes it to the third part, into Germany. Now, at this point, as I said before, fascism has started to spread. We've seen it in Albania. We've seen it, of course, in Italy. And Germany is also starting to adopt it too, very much due to the same reasons as why Italy did, the whole anti-communist sphere. And Hitler's taken power in the 1930s. So one of the things that Germany tries to do is they try to push into Austria.
Wait, this is like before the whole Soviet Union and all that stuff. So where's the Red Scare coming from?
Oh no, the Soviet Union existed. By the 1920s, the Soviet Union exists. It's just Stalin's desperately trying to reform his country and make it so that it's not going to collapse on its own backside. So they're very much occupied with just keeping Soviet Russia alive, rather than what Trotsky is saying before he got an ice pick to the back of his head about spreading the revolution to the other countries. So he's like, well.
So what's the big scare then?
The big scare is that they saw communism succeed in the Soviet Union. So people are like, communism seems kind of cool. And it definitely seems like a better alternative than what we had before. Because you got to keep in mind, a lot of these countries had democracies, in air quotes, where it's basically like a ruling aristocracy kind of bossing people around. Or in the case of France, changing governments every few years because they don't know how to do things properly without breaking into a revolt or something of that sort. So we need something stable, something like communism. Because
yes, stable.
Very stable.
Communism is indeed the most stable system.
Well, technically that's true. They are very static.
Well, yeah. Oh, if only we were talking about Soviet history. You would see just how many times they were switching things back and forth. Um, but at this point, Germany, they're trying to like exert their influence and they're trying to expand themselves. So one of their moves is going directly against the peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, is that they try to move into Austria and they try to take over chunks of Austria. Now, in 1934, Germany wasn't that powerful yet. So this was more just kind of like a probing action by Hitler. And Mussolini, being the strong, brave hero who beats up kids that he is like, not I respect the League of Nations and I respect countries having their own sovereignty. Hitler, be gone. And so he marches his forces there and scares them back. And in the eyes of Germany and Great Britain, they're like, oh, Italy, senpai, you're my hero.
Oh my god.
Never say that again, thanks.
Oh my god.
Italy,
Tong, I
senpai.
swear.
Yeah.
But like, this is when the gears start turning in the heads of France and Great Britain. Now, bear with me here. This is kind of a bizarre chain, but you just got to understand their whole idea is they want to be able to keep themselves powerful, but with the least amount of effort being done by French and British people. That's their end goal here. So they're like, who do we dislike the most? We dislike the Soviet Union the most. So we don't like communism. We want to be able to beat back communism. But how do we balance communism? Fascists, they're kind of kooky. They're kind of weird. They run around on unicycles, whacking.
They don't make a whole lot of sense either.
They don't make a whole lot of sense. But one thing that does make sense is that they're anti-communism. So we want to support fascists to counteract the communists. Okay, makes sense.
It's a real
That's the most
flipperoonie.
This is not a new idea here.
Right. But then they realized there's different kinds of fascists. There's reasonable fascists, like Benito Mussolini, who's going around attacking Africans, which is fine. You know, that's perfectly fine. We've done that before. It works great. It's good for morale. It's good for exercise. And you know, you really
It really builds character.
Exactly. Invading Africa builds
so
character.
much character.
Mussolini, you're good for
Because
doing
that's the most important part of all of this.
that. Absolutely.
course.
Yes. And it also gives you dashing good war stories to tell back home. Mussolini is a good fascist. Hitler,
Yeah, sure.
he's been expanding, but it mostly means at the loss of our friends, the French and other Europeans. So that's like more iffy. So Hitler's kind of a nut job. Mussolini is reasonable. So we're gonna have to balance out Hitler by supporting Mussolini over Hitler. And also
'Cause that always works too.
exactly. And also
Obviously.
yes, Germany was one of the biggest military powers during World War I, but that's all fine now. They're not building up their army in secret at this point. What are you talking about? And also, if things go,
We have the Treaty of Versailles.
step in. Sorry.
We have the Treaty of Versailles. They can't build up their army anymore.
Exactly. They signed on the dotted line right there. I mean, yes, there were different people who literally got thrown out of the government because they did so, but like, you know, it's fine. They'll respect it.
It's fine,
respect
man.
it.
It's chill.
Exactly. And if they don't
Completely
respect
chill.
it, well, the Soviets are on the other side, so they can balance them out. So we're gonna, like, you just gotta imagine like a cork board full of like those strings and everything.
The red lines.
Conspiracy theory board. It's like France and Great Britain can prop up Western countries if we keep balance with the Italian fascists who counterbalance the German fascists, who altogether counterbalance the communists, who also in turn counterbalance Hitler, who counterbalances France, who counterbalances something like that.
It's
Yeah,
a real
that makes perfect
concept.
sense. 100%. So, because Mussolini did this thing, this whole idea about like we could play the fascists off against each other and against the communists is like the big operation of the people who are supposed to be keeping world peace, Great Britain and France. And then things kind of take a turn for the worse in 1936. So at this point, Mussolini's wrapping up his conquest of Ethiopia. He's like dusting off his hands and he's like, all right, I like how my military is able to kick and knock over easy prey like that. What should I do next?
Oh,
And
dear.
it comes in, it's like, hey, a civil war just broke out in Spain. There's a bunch of fascists who are fighting the Republican government. He's like, I'm sorry, did you say fascists?
Oh boy.
And he's like, well, let me give them the same deal that I gave to good old Albania right there. Meanwhile, King Zog is like just still desperately trying to find a wife.
Excuse me, Spaniards. Would you care for
I
a
forgot
small
he was still
loan?
trying to get married.
Look,
Yeah,
Mussolini invented a lot of things, but Tinder was not one of them.
that one of the shortcomings of fascism. It does not get you hitched, especially if you're trying to get hitched with royalty, who all hate you.
It
I
does
mean-
get you hitched with the government.
That's true. Everything's now the government.
And the hilarious part is that Mussolini started this whole sort of affair by trying to get hitched.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, he started this whole thing so he could pay his mistresses.
Oh, dear Lord.
But Mussolini is like, civil war. That's where profit is to be made. So he reaches out to Franco and the other fascists in Spain and is like, hey, we'll support you so that you can become another fascist dictatorship. And then we'll have all fascist dictatorships in the entirety of Europe. You know, it's going to be wonderful.
Because that's the most important thing in the whole entire world, fascist dictatorships,
Yeah.
obviously.
And it's this whole idea, like, fascists must unite together. I mean, does our philosophy mean that we have to expand in opposition to other people because we consider ourselves the best, and therefore it means that we're inevitably going to clash against each other? Yes.
Yes.
But that means we're fighting with fascists, and that means that it builds good strength and vigor. You know, that's healthy competition.
It
Not
builds
I care about good
character.
competition, you know.
Ah, yes, we have always been at war with Italy.
Yes, yeah. So he reaches out and he starts supporting them. And then he like sees the next person to come in, and it's Adolf Hitler.
Holy shit.
Why? I haven't seen you since 1934 when I sent my army over there to make sure you didn't invade Austria. Oh, Mussolini. I didn't expect to see you here at Franco's house. What's going on? Oh, we're just trying to send over some airplanes and some troops, or military advisors, rather, to help support the fascist cause. Why? We're doing the same exact thing, friends.
Oh my god.
Why does your Hitler have such a strong Italian accent?
He's trying to relate to Mussolini here. That's the whole idea. He's speaking the language of diplomacy and love.
Hitler and Mussolini were basically
Yes,
like
Italian.
jinx.
Yes. But so he reaches out across the lines, and then they form this alliance called the Axis Alliance because they see, because like technically, if you look at it, Germany is right north of Italy. So they're like, if we draw a line straight through this, we basically have the axis around which the entire world can revolve. Never mind the
I
fact
always wondered where that namesake came from.
axes work on a sphere. But, you know, the idea is that we're going to be the new powerhouse of fascism. So, meanwhile, Great Britain and France are like, yes, yes, Mussolini's the guy who's going to be able to, you know, keep Hitler in line. I mean,
Mhm.
he signed an agreement with
Sure.
them, but that's just to look good, right? Agreements people respect are the Treaty of Versailles and all that stuff. They don't respect other treaties, surely.
Sure. Yeah.
So the Spanish
That's-
Civil War,
Because-
great
yes,
chance for
the
them.
Italians were extremely known for keeping their treaties.
Oh, indeed, especially amongst each other. Throw back to the old Renaissance days. But basically, at this point, 1936, the Axis powers are formed. Germany and Italy have basically signed up together to pummel the communists in Spain. And now,
And no one could have ever possibly seen this coming.
and no one could have ever seen this coming. And Franco was like, "Oh boy, this is really nice, actually." Because like when I said that I needed military support, I was expecting kind of what the other countries were giving to the Republicans, which is like, you know, money, economic support, maybe some weapons here or there, but not really. Meanwhile, I'm literally getting armies sent over from Germany and Italy to help defeat my enemies. Like, this is amazing, you know? And the Republicans are like, hey, no fair. We're communists, but we don't want that kind, you know, like we demand equal treatment, even so so that becomes a lovely little bonding experience between Hitler and Mussolini. And then afterwards, in 1938, here's where the whole like the big gamble that like the British and the French about like Italy balancing out Germany comes to play. So Hitler decides we need more land for Germany and tries to annex land from the country of Czechoslovakia, which is in Europe, which is kind of an issue because even though Great Britain and France don't really give two shits about non-European countries when they get invaded, if it's a European country, that's a separate matter, especially if it's a European country that they technically had some ties with. So Hitler is like, you know, something, there's a region called the Sudetenland with a lot of German people. That means it belongs to Germany. Great Britain and France are like, whoa, that's not how this works, bruh. Even though, yes, technically we've done that before and allowed you to take over some other land. But the buck stops here. And France, despite its history of, military defeats, and also the fact that it was really, really suffering following World War I, is like, we're going to fight on behalf of Czechoslovakia if you dare step foot into that country. And
Oh my god.
Was this before or after the Maginot
France.
Line?
Of the one place you step in, oh my god.
Is in Czechoslovakia. Because France is like, we don't want Germany to expand. Italy, yeah, fine, you do your thing. But Germany, they're the guys that we had our beef with before. We don't want them to be powerful again. So we care about this.
Was this before or after the Maginot Line?
Oh, they've been building that this entire time. So they've always been
so they're
worried
safe
about Germany. So,
Yeah.
so France is like, we got to step in. We got to put our money where our mouth is. Isn't that right, Great Britain? And Great Britain's like, I'm sorry, France, what did you say? And France is like, another government their government was just a mess at this point.
Oh my god.
They're having election after election after election, government after government after government. So Great Britain's like, France, what'd you say? And France is like, so Great Britain's like,
France is having a tough time.
I guess I'll speak for France on this then. We, Great Britain and France, representing the League of Nations, yada, 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 declare that you stop right there. And Germany, like...
Yes, because that's very effective.
And
is this the peace in our time?
Great Britain's like, pretty much, yeah. And Great Britain's like, us and Mussolini, you want to help us out here? And he's like, did someone call me? He's like, yes, it's me, Mussolini. I'm here to make a peace. Now, that is all. And we're going to sit down and we're going to negotiate the best treaty ever. Like, it's going to be great. It's going to be the best peace treaty. There's going to be so much peace. People are going to be sick of peace, after this is over.
I'm just imagining
the best.
Great Britain and France just standing like up to Hitler, and Britain is like pointing a finger and doing a speech, and France is just behind him, like on the ground having a fucking seizure.
That's pretty accurate, honestly. But basically, Mussolini goes and gathers everyone that's involved in this conflict with Czechoslovakia. He gets Great Britain, he gets France, he brings Italy, of course, he brings Germany, and that's it, because he doesn't need to care about Czechoslovakia's opinion, even though this is all about Czechoslovakia.
Yes,
don't worry about it.
Who's
All right.
involved.
Let's negotiate a good peace settlement here. This is what we need to do. We need you to allow Germany to take over the Sudetenland that they said that they wanted, and some more land. And in return, Hitler is going to swear to stop trying to expand. Isn't that right?
Oh my god.
And Hitler's like, yeah, with his fingers, like, his twisted right behind his back, Very good, very good. That is all we need. We just need the Sudetenland and some more land than before. And France is just able to regain some composure to be like, are you sure this is a great idea, before collapsing into another government seizure? And Great Britain
finally got themselves together. They just die.
And Great Britain, with Neville Chamberlain as their prime minister, is like, yes, oh thank God, Mussolini, you're a genius. This is the art of the deal right here. You just made peace with honor. Everyone's gonna be happy. Czechoslovakia was like, hey, wait, don't we get to say this? This is kind of our land.
Like, guys,
They're like,
We're
shut
still
up.
here.
isn't this about me? Hello?
Let's go, guys. Please, just let me in.
What about my
Or
land?
just slap him in the face and walk
And so
away.
Chamberlain, pretty much. And so Chamberlain's like, yep, we'll sign off for everyone on this. We all agree. Isn't that right, France? And France is like limp, like a limp arm to give a thumbs up before collapsing again. And Germany, of course, is like, thank you, Mussolini. I know you have our back. Oh, you cruel, cruel man. You make us sacrifice so much on Mussolini. And Mussolini, that's what I'm here for. And Czechoslovakia, of course, is like, wait. And finally, the treaty comes down to Czechoslovakia. They look at this after the Munich conference is over, and they're like, wait, hold on.
Bitch, when did we get this?
You're saying we're going to lose more land than when we first had to deal with Germany? How does this make sense? And France, you're going to support us on this, right? And France, sorry, the government shut down again. I'm sorry. We'll process.
They're just limping.
2 years. Thank you very much. And And Chamberlain comes back home. He like literally steps off his plane. It's like, this is the best thing ever. This is peace with honor. Italy is great. We love.
We have won.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Hitler's like, well, nice. We literally just got all this land without fighting anyone, you know? And so at this point, we've seen Mussolini be able to play and take over more of their fascist friends and use that fascist threat to build alliances with countries like Spain and especially with Germany. They're able to go ahead and start expanding on their own. No one's able to really stop them. And at this, the only thing that is supposed to keep check is each other, Germany and Italy. And that clearly didn't work in 1938 with this Munich conference over Czechoslovakia. But Great Britain and to a lesser degree France are all sticking their fingers in their ears and just going, la, 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 everything's fine. There's war in Europe. What are you talking about? So they think that everything's
It just screams and mobs and things on fire out the window and they go
pretty
down the
much,
lines.
yeah. So in 1939, this is like the final kind of like resolution that you could hope for. In 1939, Germany is like, this new land from Czechoslovakia is nice and all. I could definitely go for a second helping of this, just take over all of Czechoslovakia. So they go ahead and invade Czechoslovakia. Italy,
Again.
like, it's great being able to run Albania in almost every single form, but officially, why don't we just invade Albania and take it over? And meanwhile, King Zog is like, wait, hold on.
Honestly, is it really
finally got a royal line going? And then he gets kicked out of Albania. And Italy invades Albania in 1939. Yeah.
He just made it.
He just finally made it, and now it's all just pulled out underneath him. So Czechoslovakia gets invaded by Germany, Albania gets invaded by Italy, and Great Britain and France are still like, now you shouldn't have done that. That goes against the League of Nations and all the other agreements that we signed. So
Hitler, you remember that paper we signed in Munich?
Yeah. Like, what happened to this? I thought you guys were gonna, stick up for this. But no matter.
Yes, the deal that completely destroyed Germany's economy.
Yeah, we're gonna. Should we use sanctions? No, the sanctions didn't work last time. We shouldn't try that. Okay. We are gonna declare war on you if you do this again. There. Eat that. So Great Britain and France both side with the country of Poland, which is like looking nervously on both sides as both the Soviet Union is finally starting to gear up and Germany is slowly gobbling more and more territory. And it's just like, hey, we finally got ourselves back together after being divided amongst empires. And now they're looking at us like we're their next big meal. Can we get some help here, please? So France are like, we got you, Polish bros. We are going to step in if anyone invades Poland. And also, besides, they would never try to do that because at the end of the day, even if we don't have Mussolini, we could rely on the communists to hate the fascists, right? Right?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Yeah.
Good old Chamberlain.
Good old Chamberlain. And then in 1939, they invaded Poland and all that stuff went. But that's another story. At this point, this is the rise of Mussolini in a nutshell. Honestly,
Mussolini.
It's quite the journey for an angry, angsty newspaper editor.
Is this peak? Is it all downhill from here?
What do you mean peak? Like
he did kind of peak at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's downhill from here.
Oh yeah.
Still,
for Mussolini, it's very much downhill at this point because his whole modus operandi is being the guy who beats up kids with a newspaper, metaphorically and literally. And
he also has many different levels of beating kids. You have to remember he has the actual child beating,
of course,
and then country beatings.
Yeah,
it's his thing. He's very nuanced about it.
He is. He's got that nuance going for him. But he starts picking fights.
Expert.
He is. He gets paid for this kind of stuff. But when he starts beating up, someone who's his same size or a bit bigger, as was the case with Great Britain, things start turning the other way around. And that's when he stops being the big daddy of fascism and he's looking up to Hitler to be the next big thing, which is going to be what our next series is going to be about, the rise of Hitler. So What a run.
Man, we're just getting all of the really bad stuff out of the way immediately.
Oh yeah,
We're doing all the fucking History Channel topics.
all the History Channel topics, pretty much.
No, we haven't done
Somebody
the
do that.
aliens yet.
Exciting stuff, So, but yeah, this is going to be the end for Mussolini for now. He'll be making his own appearances later on, I'm sure, with fascist Germany. But thank you guys for joining me on this. Hope this was a fun little talk that we had. Our trilogy of Mussolini. And
Of course.
yeah, stay tuned. We'll be going into the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany next as our next big topic in our next series. Wunderbar indeed.
It's certainly very enlightening. Nobody ever talks about Mussolini, I guess.
Yeah, no one gives him enough credit, unfortunately. They all just jump straight to the Hitler bandwagon. But
Do you know why?
Hitler could not have been as big.
Mussolini only hit children with newspapers. Hitler,
To be
on
fair,
the hand,
like-
just killed a shit ton of people. So I
Hitler
guess
was
there's a
actually,
difference.
in hindsight, Hitler was far more actually threatening.
Right.
So.
Oh, yes,
you can't get a
definitely.
Hitler. You can't get a Hitler. The guy who actually goes out and like really rains terror and thunder over everyone without having Mussolini, the enabler, who's able to like play things and keep the peace long enough to allow Hitler to grow and build up to his size.
Right. He's the ultimate wild card that set up this crazy scenario where Great Britain tried to bootstrap peace from
Pretty
all
much.
these. All these
Yeah, because like
violent-
if you think about it, if Germany had no one to like counterbalance them and Hitler starts going crazy, then yeah, at that point, I'm sure Great Britain and especially France, when it stops hemorrhaging blood, decides like now's the time to put our foot down and say no is no. But like when Italy seems like such a nice alternative to like use their large fascist anti-communist army to also be anti-Hitler.
Because they couldn't possibly be working together.
No, I mean they're just
No.
it's a name only, right? I mean, who knows even what fascists are? But they sure don't.
I'm not sure they do.
They don't. No, sir. But if you think about it, Mussolini, as silly and as like relatively speaking, a small role compared to like Nazi Germany and all that stuff in terms of fascism played, he still started the whole thing of fascism, this radical idea of nationalism. He also enabled countries to start breaking the old established balance of power kind of mentality and just go all out for like power is power. There's no balance in this shit. And he was the guy that helped, get the training wheels off of Hitler, if you will. So
Yeah, I don't think that was a good idea.
Well, he
Yeah.
gave him the training wheels, to be fair.
he gave him the training wheels.
That's
I
true.
saw him like go long enough to like take them off too. He's like a proud dad. Once again,
Aw,
Big Daddy Mussolini.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
hey, Matt.
Ain't that sweet?